going to give you a little background on myself to kind of show you how my life led up to this point. Like Gina said, I was raised a Christian Scientist with a Jewish father. I always felt it gave me a lot of open-mindedness. My ex-wife just called it confused. But I reached a stage when I was 12 years old where I got tired of going to Sunday school every Sunday. I had to go to school 5 days a week. I didn't want to go to school for an hour and then wait for my mom to be out of church every Sunday. Now, in Christian Science Sunday School, I learned about Adam and Eve, which I got. But I never understood who thus and thou and thee and hath were. I did get the 10 Commandments, and the one about thou shalt not murder kind of confused me, because not too long after that, I learned about how God drowned everybody in the flood except for Noah and his family. So that really confused me. After that, I thought God was a little bit mean, so I kind of X'd God out a little bit. I thought he was mean. I didn't like him very much anymore. So I approached my mother in the kitchen, and I was pretty tall for 12, and I said, "Mom," was I saying mom at that point? It was too macho to say mommy anymore. So I said, "Mom, I'm not going to Sunday school anymore. That's it." And she looked at me. She saw I was pretty determined. I was kind of feisty. She was determined too, but wise enough to say, "Michael, you know, you're old enough now where I'm not going to force you anymore." And I'll never forget the words she said at that time. I was thrilled. Didn't have to go to Sunday school. She said, "When you have nothing else to turn to when you're older, you'll probably come back to it." And it's very interesting because after that point, my life led to a point. I studied astronomy, and I read everything I could get my hands on astronomy. And in astronomy, I learned that there's a theory of creation called the Big Bang Theory, which says that everything in the universe came from infinitely small, infinitely dense particle. So that made a lot more sense to me at first than the creation theory of Christian Science. Except with my questioning mind, I asked, where did that particle come from? And no matter what I read about astronomy and cosmology, the scientists did not have an answer for that. I don't like unanswered questions. So I figured, okay, God, that's better than no answer. So maybe there is a God, I just haven't defined him properly yet. A lot of people have a problem with God, and I had a lot of problems with God at the time too, because I thought, how can there possibly be a loving, kind creator that allows a child to be born in a starving country, and that child suffers and then dies from starvation? I could do a better job than that if I was God. So I became an atheist. So at a young age, I was an empiricist before I even knew what that meant. So I was asking, where did the first particle come from? Now, my father, bless his heart, he always told me that, "Michael, there's nothing you can't achieve if you really put your heart into it." Now, that key word was heart, and I didn't really get that because I started putting my mind into everything. So I questioned things. I always questioned things. I questioned authority because obviously the grand authority I already questioned because there was a contradiction there in his own rules. He couldn't follow them himself. So I was asking, what's the purpose of life? Why was I born? Why is there crime? Why is there bullies? I couldn't understand bullies at school. I was always defending the underdog against the bullies. Disease, suffering, starvation. By the time I reached age 18, my goal in life, hey, as long as I can achieve anything according to my father, I may as well go for the big one. I wanted to fix the world. I was very judgmental about anybody who believed in God. I thought, how stupid can they be? They're so ignorant. All these people that are religious and all these religions, they're just ignorant. I've got the wisdom. I was a punk teenager. What did I know? And then eventually that wasn't satisfactory enough. And I kept studying and reading and learning. And I got to a point where I said, okay, maybe there is a God, but I just don't understand it. So I became agnostic. During the last 40 years, I've studied quantum physics, philosophy, psychology. I got a certified hypnotherapist. I became a doctor in metaphysics. I studied all the things you can see on that list there. And after 27 years of those studies, I got to a point where I realized that I had developed my intellect to the point where I found fault with everything. Every one of those systems, there was something in them that I could find a contradiction that didn't make sense to my analytical mind, and I'd throw out the whole system and move on to the next one. Now, it was fun. I was learning a lot, and I'm not sad that I did that because it finally brought me to a conclusion you're going to see. And then eventually, after reading and contemplating enough, I discovered the concept of karma and reincarnation. And then it started to make sense to me. But then I started to realize, well, you know, karma can be a fear factor too. That can be a way to manipulate people. Oh, you better be good or it's going to come. What goes around comes around is true. But you got to be careful how you use it. And I learned that from studying every religion out there, they all have a mystical core.